All About Jesus. What we've been talking about all year long here at Mackville. All about Jesus. Today, you want me to do what? Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 36. I recently ran across this little limerick. If you like limericks, listen closely to this one. There once were two cats from Kilkenny. Each thought that was one cat too many. They fought and they spit and they clawed and they bit. Instead of two cats, there weren't any. How many of you could picture that in your mind as I was reading it? Several of you could. Several of you could. You know, when I first read that, my mind went back to the farm I grew up on and lived at for much of my adult life. We always had anywhere from 3 to 5 cats on our farm. We rarely had a problem with mice. We rarely had a problem with rats or rodents, unless, of course, one of those proud predators would leave one on our porch as a present, you might say. You know how cats like to do that. But with several cats, we always had one thing that was common. We had plenty of fights. Real cat fights. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen cats fighting. Lots of hissing. Lots of screams that would just curdle your blood. And they were the kind of fights that if you tried to break them up, you would end up looking like you were a participant. You know, be scratched all over. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Because that's what cats do, isn't it? Cats do that. But I want you to think about it. Do Christian people ever act like that? Would someone who claims to be a follower of Christ fight like cats? Yeah, we would. This week, I read about a church in southern Ohio that is, I would assume, very similar to Mackville. The church has been meeting in the same spot since 1840. And there's this notation from the church's history in a little pamphlet they produced about the history of the church. The church, around the time of the Civil War, this notation went in there, folks. It said, and I quote, "We had fighting right here at home. The Democrats and Republicans were so bitter against one another, it broke the church up." Another entry told of a fist fight that took place on the church property. It said, "Two of our best men fought to a finish. One wanted to know if the other had had enough, and he had, so he let him up." Cat fights can be funny, folks. They can be scary, but they can be funny. When I've seen cats fight, I've thought sometimes, how can they come out of that with nothing hurt but their pride? You know, that's just how cats are. But when things in churches fight like that, when they fight like what I just wrote about or read you about, it's not funny. In fact, it's completely opposing what God's people should be. It completely opposes what Jesus said in Luke chapter 6 and verses 27 through 36. Jesus told us how we are to get along with each other. Let's read along what Jesus said. "But I say to you who hear, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, And from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish it that others would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemies and do good and lend expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for He is merciful to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Folks, I've done some things that were very difficult in my lifetime. Physically, one of the most difficult things I ever did was, about 20 years ago, I got up one morning and I got on my bicycle and rode 53 miles around the hills of central Kentucky. Now, that was difficult. It was physically, it was tough. Mentally, I've had things that were very tough. I've moved out of state. I moved to other states twice in my life. I've lived in both North Carolina and in Indiana. And at first, they were tough, but things came around. But mentally, it was very tough. And I can tell you, though, with a high degree of certainty that those things that were tough were easy compared to loving my enemies. I can tell you there are times that I have failed miserably, and I would guess that many of us in here could say the same thing. I have yelled at people for abruptly cutting me off while I'm driving, and I've questioned their intelligence and yelled like, yeah, they're going to hear me, but I guess it got something off my chest. There are people that have hurt me, and I wanted to get back to them. You know how a lot of people are today. I don't get mad, I get even. A lot of people are like that, and there are times that I've been like that. Thankfully, I'm a work in progress, and I'm doing much better about that. But unfortunately, it took me many, many years, a lot of failures, and a lot of soul searching to see what Jesus told His disciples. Simply what? Love your enemies. Folks, that's radical. They're enemies for a reason, whether real or imagined. But when I think of someone who's my enemy, I think of someone who wants to spare no effort to bring me down. I think of someone who might even take a high-powered gun and end my life in the name of His cause or in the name of His country. But Jesus said, love your enemies. Period. He didn't leave any wiggle room in there. He said, love your enemies. So folks, if you want to change the world, love people, even your enemies. Remember again, Jesus unequivocally said, love your enemies. Period. That's what He said. And folks, that's hard, isn't it? It's hard. I'm not going to tell you any different. It's hard. I want you to think about what Jesus said. He said, loving your enemies is not optional. Loving your enemies is not optional. What is an enemy? Well, the Greek word used there, echthros, is an enemy or someone who's openly hostile or animated in a deep-seated threat, deep-seated hatred. But let's get that into the English language. Cambridge Dictionary says an enemy is, quote, a person who hates or opposes another person and tries to harm them or stop them from doing something. That's not exactly the picture of someone I want to love. But what did Jesus say? Read it with me again. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. Folks, I'll just be very frank with you. I can't think of anything more difficult than loving someone who actually hates me. I can't think of anything more difficult than loving someone who curses me or wants to bring evil upon me. That's what the word curses means. Or someone who abuses or mistreats me or treats me with no respect. I can't think of anything more difficult than loving people that are like that. It's tough, and I don't know any other way to put it. What Jesus so called on us to do is to love those people. And folks, that is tough beyond description, I believe. I can tell you that in my lifetime I've made enemies, both as a preacher and as a writer. And those events were sometimes so etched in my mind that when I hear those persons' names mentioned today, I sometimes do a double take. No, I don't wish ill will upon them, but I wonder if they're actually still wanting to harm me. Yet Jesus says we are to love those people. Folks, that's tough. That's tough. But Jesus said to do it. It's not optional. You see, the Greek word there is the Greek word agapate. I can hardly pronounce it. It's the verb form of the word agape that Christians have preached and taught and studied for centuries. But the kicker is not just the word, it's the tense it's in. It's a verb. And it's in the present imperative tense. The imperative means what? It's a command. It's a command to us. The present tense. The Greek language is just a little bit different than the English. And in the Greek language, present tense indicates a continuing action, something that doesn't stop, something that happens continuously. It happens repeatedly and is in the process of happening. So Jesus is basically saying, love your enemies and don't stop it. Always love your enemies. Love your enemies and keep on doing so. That's the kind of love that Jesus was talking about. And it's different than the love that we think about. A lot of times in our society and in American culture, when we use the word love, we think of a romantic relationship. Can you remember that first date you had? How many here can remember that? Our sound tech did not raise her hand. For those who are watching on video, the sound tech is my wife. Okay. But anyway, can you remember that first date you had? It was almost 20 years ago. And I can still picture almost everything from that day. Stephanie and I had met online, and we had exchanged emails back and forth for a couple of months. And she kept suggesting kindly, subtly, let's get together for lunch sometime. And I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And so finally I gave in. And we met at a Cracker Barrel in Shelbyville. But both of us, neither one of us knew this at the time. Well, she knew this about me. I didn't know about her, I don't think. But we both had ready-made reasons or excuses to get out of there if things didn't go very well. Mine was I was still working at the newspaper, obviously, and I had a basketball game to cover in Bardstown that afternoon. And so I knew that. She was also had a reason that if things didn't happen well, that she was going to get out of there. Anyway, we got to talking and things went so well. I was pushed to get to Bardstown on time, And I believe she was pushed to get to her appointment as well. And I guess things worked out. 7 months to the day later, we stood before a preacher at Shelby Christian Church and said, I do, and we'll be celebrating 19 years next week. And so I'm looking forward to that. You might know that feeling. You know there's something special when there's that person or a chemistry between you. The Greek language, which most of the New Testament was written, uses as a special word for that. It's eros. E-R-O-S in transliteration. Eros. It's an intimate relationship with someone. Agape, though, is different. Agape is a verb, and the verb forms like I talked about today refer to an unconditional, sacrificial love. Yes, it's part of a marriage relationship, but it's different as well. Agape is a love of choice. It serves others with humility. It's a selfless love, the highest form of love that you can have. And Jesus says, you have to love people in that way. I think about that and it scares me, to be honest with you. Because Jesus is saying, love your enemies. Choose to do what's best for someone. Choose to do best for someone who wants to bring you down. Love them, period. Would you agree that's what Jesus said? Yes. Because it's right there in front of us. Love them and want what's best for them. Because you see, loving enemies isn't what the world respects. Remember, or world expects. Loving enemies isn't what the world expects. Remember I said earlier that much of the world today goes on the idea of, I don't get mad, I get even. What Jesus said is completely opposite of that. We say, get even with them, bring them down, put them in their place. And you know something, that's how the world wants you to think. Because who is the prince of this world? Satan. And what does Satan want to do? Cause discord. Cause hatred. Satan wants you to try to get even, pull some people down. So when you love people, even your enemies, it's going to take the world by surprise. Think about what Jesus said. Look, pick up there in verse 29. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from the one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. Jesus was saying, love people and expect nothing in return. You know, a lot of times we look at Christianity as a way of just avoiding bad things. But following Christ is more than just staying out of trouble. A lot of people, that's what they think it is. But what does Christianity also entail? It calls for proactively loving people. And that's not always easy to do. Proactively love people. You know, as nearly as always the case, people try to take what Jesus said out of context and try to make him say things that he's not saying. For example, he's not saying here to just give to people and just make a class of saintly paupers. He's not saying to support lazy people or thieves or anything like that. I know that Stephanie and I like to go up to Cincinnati a time or two each year and go catch the Reds play. And for years, when I go to the baseball games there at Great American Ballpark, you walk through a parking lot there on the way to the stadium, and there would be beggars all over the place. Anybody ever been there and noticed that? Lots of beggars there. And you know, I felt bad because I wasn't giving them any money. But I didn't know. I just felt I don't want to give them money to go out and get some more whiskey or whatever. I read about this, that one of the television stations in Cincinnati had so many complaints about it, they did a study into it. And I did not know this. There are professional beggars. Professional beggars, and some of these people were taking in, this was 15 years ago, because since there's been a law passed that you do it out in the open like that, it's illegal in that city. But 15 years ago, they were taking in $50,000 and $60,000. You think about that with inflation today. They were professional beggars. That's not what Jesus is saying to give to. Because think about what Paul said. Paul said in 2 Thessalonians 3:10, if anyone is not willing to work, what? Let him not eat. And when Jesus said to turn the other cheek, he's not, or let people take whatever they want. He's not saying we should just allow no authority. He's not saying we should allow anarchy to rule, because in Romans 13, Paul wrote that government has a purpose. It's God's servant to maintain order in society. Paul wrote in Romans 13:3, for rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who has authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. So what Jesus is saying, though, is to always seek the best for someone, even your enemies. He's saying we don't be self-centered when someone is in need. Christians are to be people who reach out to help others. You know, Jesus summed it up in Luke chapter 6 and verse 31. Listen to what he said. As you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Matthew records this by adding these words, for this is the law and the prophets. We have paraphrased that in our society into what was called what? The golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But that simple directive is so much different than what the world believes. The world says, I don't get mad, I get even. The world is, be nice to others if they're nice to you. But what did Jesus say? Love them. Love your enemies. We're to go beyond what the world expects, folks. Jesus told us that we are more than to be nice to people who are nice to us. We are about being loving people, even to our enemies. We are about doing good, asking nothing in return. And folks, it's easy to talk like that. It's easy to say that, asking for nothing in return. But in reality, it's not. You know, I've heard Christian people utter these things. Things like, I paid their electric bill for them this month, and they didn't even thank me. I'm not going to do anything else for them. I gave them a ride, and they didn't even offer me something for gas. Jesus said to lend, to give, and do what? Expect nothing in return. We're to be people who give that love of Jesus Christ to other people. You know, I mentioned those things. But I can't even imagine what it would be like to treat my enemies that way. I remember at a church I served at one time, I made someone mad over something I preached, and I didn't back down. But someone got mad, and so that person was very upset with me, and I went out of my way to try to treat that person well. But when I later found out about the lies that had been told behind my back, and the plan this person had to bring me down, and folks, it was a humdinger too. When I found out about it, folks, it hurt. It hurt. And sometimes when you love enemies, you're going to get hurt. I'm not going to put it any other way to you. This week I did an internet search about getting back to people. Don't worry, I'm not looking for ways to get back to anybody here. But you know, a lot of people want to get even with people. But it was kind of eye-opening to me when I did that search that Scientific American, a magazine that's been around since 1845, published a study on the behavior of kindness and greed. And the article, which was printed in 2013, was entitled, "Bad Behavior Gets Paid Forward Even More Than Good." Folks, that title even sounds ominous to me, does it to you? One thing that I found interesting in this was that the study said, and it was actually a study done by social scientists who went to 3 major universities. One thing I noticed is that when people are treated bad, they often want to take it out on somebody else. And that's true. The article said, "Our results reveal that people pay greed forward as a means of dealing with the negative emotions that being treated badly engender. If I can't pay you back by being a jerk, my only option for feeling better is to be a jerk to someone else." And you know something? That does sum up a lot of the world, does it not? For quite a while, we had a slogan on our bulletin. It said, "Love God, love people, change the world." That doesn't mean that we give in to behavior that contradicts the Word of God. It does say that if we want to change the world, we're going to do what? We're going to love people. We're going to love people above all else other than loving God. It means that Christ followers, we're going to work for their good, and we're not going to expect anything in return. Who else did that? Jesus. In fact, think about what Jesus did. He loved us so much that He died for us, and He knew we couldn't repay in any way. That's love to the highest degree. All Jesus asks is that we put our faith in Him. We can't repay Him in any way. And that's the love that we're called to embody. Earlier in this message this morning, I referred to Romans 13, talking about the government. And I found it interesting, and I had never put it together until this week, when it just jumped out at me, and as I was reading through, that the few verses right after that talk about us as opposed to the government. We're told, "Owe no one anything except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment is summed up in this word, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is fulfilling the law." What did Jesus say? Love your enemies. Period. Love them. Keep loving them. I pray that each one of you here will reach to each other in love. I hope there's no enemies here in the church. You'll love others, and you'll reach out here in Mackville and the surrounding area to love people as Jesus loved us the best we can. Let's pray.